The young man's name was Marcus Williams. He was 22 years old. He'd saved up money for weeks to eat at the Sands Hotel restaurant, to see where Dean Martin performed, to be in that world, even just for one night. He'd gotten dressed in his best suit, the only suit he owned, driven to the Sands, walked through those famous doors, asked for a table, been seated. For 10 minutes he'd felt like he belonged, like he was part of something special, like Vegas really was the place where dreams came true. And now a waiter was telling him to leave. "We don't serve your kind here," the waiter said. Marcus felt his face get hot, felt everyone in the restaurant looking at him or pretending not to look. He started to stand up, to leave quietly, to not make a scene. That's when he heard a voice behind him. "Hold on, don't go anywhere." Marcus turned. Dean Martin was standing there, the Dean Martin, the man Marcus had saved up weeks to maybe catch a glimpse of, standing right behind him. And Dean Martin looked angry. Not loud angry, not yelling angry, but the kind of quiet anger that made the whole restaurant go silent. This is the story of what happened next, of what Dean Martin said that silenced the room, and of how one moment in 1965 changed a young man's life forever. It was late, past midnight, May 1965. The Sands Hotel restaurant in Las Vegas was still half full. Late diners, people who'd come to see the shows, tourists, high rollers, the usual Vegas crowd. Marcus had grown up in Los Angeles. His father was a janitor. His mother cleaned houses. They'd sacrificed everything so Marcus could chase his dream of becoming a professional musician. Piano lessons, music books, a used upright piano that took up half their small living room. Dean Martin was his hero, not just because of the voice or the success, but because Dean made it look effortless, made it look like anyone could do it. Marcus had listened to Dean's records until the vinyl wore thin. Coming to the Sands wasn't just about dinner, it was about being in Dean's world, about proving he belonged. Dean Martin had just finished his second show of the night. He was tired. He'd performed 2 full sets, sung for 2 hours, done his casual, unrehearsed thing that looked effortless, but actually took a lot out of him. Dean was eating alone, a late dinner, steak, a glass of wine, actually wine, not the apple juice he used on stage. He was in a booth in the corner. Half the restaurant could see him, but nobody was bothering him. That was the Vegas code. Let the performers eat in peace. Marcus Williams had arrived about 20 minutes earlier. He'd been planning this for weeks. He worked as a stock clerk during the day, played piano at small clubs at night, dreaming of making it big, dreaming of being like the musicians who played with Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. He'd saved up $30. That was enough for a nice dinner at the Sands. Maybe not enough to sit close to the stage during a show, but enough to eat in the restaurant, to be in that space, to breathe that air. Marcus had been seated at a small table, near the back. Not a great table, but a table. He was grateful for it. He'd been looking at the menu, trying to decide what to order, calculating in his head what he could afford, when the waiter approached. The waiter looked at Marcus, looked at the menu in Marcus's hands, and then said, "I'm sorry, but there's been a mistake. This table is reserved." Marcus looked around. The restaurant was half empty. "Oh, okay. Can I move to another table?" "I'm sorry, but we don't have any available tables for you." Marcus understood what was happening. It was 1965. The Civil Rights Act had been passed. Legally, the Sands couldn't refuse to serve him because he was black, but that didn't mean they had to make it easy. "I can wait until a table opens up." The waiter's voice got colder. "Sir, I need to be direct with you. We don't serve your kind here. You need to leave." The words hung in the air. Marcus felt like he'd been slapped, felt everyone in the restaurant hearing this, felt humiliated. Around the restaurant, other diners looked uncomfortable. Some looked down at their plates. A few older couples nodded slightly. A younger couple looked shocked but said nothing. Nobody spoke up. That's what discrimination in 1965 was like. Legally wrong, but socially, speaking up was risky.
easier to look away. Marcus started to stand, started to gather his dignity and walk out. He'd been through this before, not at a place as famous as the Sands, but at restaurants, at clubs, at places that found ways to make black customers feel unwelcome even when they couldn't legally refuse. That's when he heard a voice behind him. "Hold on, don't go anywhere."
Marcus turned. Dean Martin was standing there, the actual Dean Martin, walking toward Marcus's table, looking at the waiter. "What's going on here?" Dean asked. His voice was quiet, calm, but there was something in it that made the question sound less like a question and more like a demand. The waiter straightened up, tried to look professional. "Mr. Martin, I was just explaining to this gentleman that we don't have a table available for him." "He's sitting at a table right now," Dean said. "Looks pretty available to me." "This table is reserved, Mr. Martin." Dean looked at the empty table, looked at the half-empty restaurant, looked back at the waiter. "Reserved for who?" The waiter hesitated. "For a VIP guest." "What's the name?" Dean asked. "I'm sorry?" "The name of the VIP. If this table is reserved, there must be a name on the reservation." The waiter didn't answer, couldn't answer, because there was no reservation, and everyone in that restaurant knew it. Dean turned to Marcus. "What's your name, son?" "Marcus Williams, sir." "What were you going to order, Marcus?" Marcus was so stunned he could barely speak. Dean Martin was talking to him, using his name. I was thinking about the steak." Dean nodded, turned back to the waiter. "Marcus here is going to have the steak, medium rare with whatever sides he wants, and you're going to take his order and serve him like you'd serve any other customer in this restaurant." The waiter's face got red. "Mr. Martin, I don't think you understand." "I understand perfectly," Dean interrupted. His voice was still quiet, still calm, but now there was steel in it. "You're refusing to serve this young man because of the color of his skin, and I'm telling you that's not going to happen. Not here, not while I'm watching." The whole restaurant was silent now. Every conversation had stopped. Every eye was on Dean Martin and the waiter and Marcus. The waiter tried one more time. "Mr. Martin, we have policies." "Then your policies are wrong," Dean said. He looked around the restaurant, made eye contact with other diners, with other staff. "Here's what's going to happen. Marcus is going to have his dinner. He's going to be treated with respect, and if that doesn't happen, I'm walking out of here, and I'm calling Frank and Sammy and every other performer who works this hotel, and we're going to have a conversation about which hotels we perform at." It wasn't a threat, it was a fact. Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra and the rest of the Rat Pack had real power in Vegas. If they refused to perform at the Sands would lose millions of dollars. The waiter understood. I'll get the manager." "You do that," Dean said. He pulled out a chair at Marcus's table, sat down. "Mind if I join you while we wait?" Marcus couldn't believe what was happening. "No, sir. Yes, sir. Of course." Dean smiled, that famous Dean Martin smile. "Relax, we're just having dinner." While they waited for the manager, Dean asked Marcus about himself, where he was from, what kind of music he played. Marcus answered, still stunned. "My parents saved up for piano lessons, started when I was 8. "That's good. Real dedication, from your parents and from you. That matters more than talent sometimes." Dean told Marcus about his own start, about being Dino Crocetti, about getting rejected, about working as a barber. "People told me I'd never make it, too Italian, too ethnic, but I kept going. You keep going too. Don't let tonight stop you." Marcus felt tears in his eyes. Dean Martin was telling him not to give up. The manager arrived within 2 minutes, a nervous-looking man in a suit. He looked at Dean, looked at Marcus, looked at the waiter. "Mr. Martin, I apologize for any confusion. There's been a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding," Dean said. "Your waiter refused to serve Marcus here because Marcus is black. That's not confusion.
That's discrimination, and it needs to stop right now.
The manager turned to the waiter. "You're fired. Leave now." The waiter tried to protest. The manager cut him off. "Now." The waiter left. The manager turned to Marcus. "Sir, I apologize. On behalf of the Sands Hotel, your dinner tonight is complimentary. Please order anything you'd like." Dean stood up. "That's better, but it's not enough. I want your word that this never happens again. To anyone. Black, white, doesn't matter. Everyone who walks through those doors gets treated the same, or the Rat Pack finds a new hotel." The manager nodded quickly. "You have my word, Mr. Martin. I'll personally make sure all staff understands. We'll have a meeting tomorrow morning. New policies, new training. This will not happen again." "Good," Dean said, "because Sammy performs here too. You think he wants to work somewhere that treats people like this? Frank's got strong feelings about equality. Joey Bishop, Peter Lawford, all of us. We're a package deal. You want the Rat Pack, you treat everyone with respect." The manager understood. The Rat Pack was the Sands' biggest draw. Their shows sold out. High rollers came from around the world. Losing them would cost the hotel millions. "I understand completely, Mr. Martin. Thank you for bringing this to my attention." Dean turned to Marcus. "You good?" Marcus nodded. Couldn't speak. Too overwhelmed. "Good," Dean said. He started to walk back to his table. Then stopped. Turned around. "Actually, Marcus, you said you play piano?" "Yes, sir. At small clubs. I'm trying to make it as a musician." Dean nodded. "Come by my dressing room tomorrow night before the show. I might have some work for you." Then Dean walked back to his table, sat down, finished his steak, like nothing had happened, like he hadn't just changed someone's life. Marcus ate his dinner. The steak was perfect, but he barely tasted it. His mind was racing. Dean Martin had stood up for him, had threatened to walk away from the Sands, had offered him a job. The next night, Marcus went to Dean's dressing room, knocked on the door. Dean answered, remembered him. "Marcus, come in. Sit down at that piano." Marcus played, nervously at first, then with more confidence. Dean listened, nodded. "You're good. Not great yet, but good. You need practice. You need to play with better musicians. You need to learn the business." Dean paused. "I need a rehearsal pianist, someone to help me practice new songs, run through arrangements. It doesn't pay much, but you'll be around professional musicians. You'll learn. You interested?" Marcus almost cried. "Yes, sir, absolutely." "Good. Start next week." Marcus Williams worked as Dean Martin's rehearsal pianist for 2 years, then became a session musician, played piano on dozens of Dean's recordings. Dean featured Marcus's playing, made sure he got credit, recommended him to other artists. Marcus played on some of Dean's biggest hits from the late 1960s and early 1970s. Sessions with Frank Sinatra, with Sammy Davis Jr., built a reputation as one of LA's most reliable session pianists, worked on over 200 recordings, eventually started teaching.
But more than career success, Dean had given Marcus confidence, the belief he belonged, that his talent mattered, that one person standing up could change everything. Dean never made a big deal about what he'd done, never mentioned it in interviews, never used it for publicity. To Dean, it was just the right thing. You see injustice, you don't look away. And Marcus never forgot that Dean Martin had stood up, had used his power, had done the right thing when it would have been easier to look away. In 1995, 30 years after that night, Marcus was interviewed for a documentary about session musicians. The interviewer asked about his biggest influences. "Dean Martin," Marcus said. "Because of his music?" "Because of his character." Marcus told the story, the Sands Hotel, the waiter, Dean standing up, the threat to call Frank and Sammy, the job offer. Did Dean ever talk about it afterward? Never, Marcus said. We worked together for years. He never brought it up, never acted like I owed him anything. He just moved forward. That was Dean. He did the right thing and didn't need credit for it. When the interview was published, people who'd been at the Sands that night confirmed the story. Other musicians shared similar stories. Times Dean had stood up quietly, had used his influence, had done the right thing. The story became part of Dean Martin's legacy, another example of his character, his compassion, his willingness to stand up for people who couldn't stand up for themselves. If this story of standing up for what's right moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Share this video with anyone who needs to know that one person can make a difference. Leave a comment about a time someone stood up for you or when you stood up for someone else. And ring that notification bell for more incredible stories about people who used their influence to change lives.